Mr. Adam Gajek, President of the European Students' Union, will now address the gathering.
Thank you very much. It's not always easy to speak after so many great speakers. I would like to address you very simply in the beginning. I just wanted to say, dear friends of the Bologna process, despite being gathered here to celebrate what is birthday of the Bologna process, I would like to start with some personal thoughts. So 100 years ago, when my grandfather was admitted to university, his whole family needed to spend their entire income to make sure that he's able to pursue his education. When my grandmother started her education, during the first year of her study, the education was interrupted by the Second World War. When my parents started to pursue the higher education, it was, of course, way easier because education became more accessible, but still, they weren't able to choose where and what they wanted to study. And also, they received the mandatory job placements after they graduated. Even my brothers, who are just 10 years older than me, had limited opportunities of going abroad or choosing a flexible program. And why I'm telling you all this? For a simple reason. It shows us clearly that we've come a long way for all these 20 years, and all the achievements that we now have, we owe them to the Bologna process, which has played a tremendous role to Europe and the European integration over the past 2 decades. But we also owe it to all the ones who dared to dream about the better world and better education in Europe. And with that being said, we still need to be honest with ourselves and admit that not everything has been a success story. We all know that on papers many things look great or even better, but what is the real problem is our will to do the real implementation. We see that very often that will is just weak. The will of the politicians, the will of the institutions, the will of our stakeholders needs to be stronger to make sure that all is going to work. We cannot think about the education for the next 5 years. We need to think about the education in advance. We need to think about the education for the next generations. It needs to be well planned, and we need to have holistic approaches to make sure that everything is going to work well for the next generations in future. To do it, I wanted to propose you a plan minimum for the Bologna process for the next 10 years. To make sure that the Bologna process in the next anniversary, in 10 years, hopefully still celebrated here, will be discussed as the main factor which made Europe to be a cohesive society with people who get equal opportunities. The first thing we need is the accessible procedures and support to the disadvantaged groups. Only few countries in Europe, by far, has actually defined these groups on the national level, and even less developed a strategy to help the ones who struggle to access education with getting it. Each country should get this kind of strategy by the 2030. The second, learning and teaching, which should be shaped by the mutual dialogue, by critical thinking, and most of all, should be a real development of student. The entire education in Europe should be based on the student-centered learning, based on competencies, and based on the progressive development by the next decade. We agreed a couple of years ago that 20% of students should be undertaking mobilities by the next year. Now we very often hear about virtual mobilities, which are not mobilities in reality. I believe that by 2030 we should be even more ambitious, and we should make sure that not only 1/3 of students are able to do a mobility, but we should make sure that all students are able to learn in foreign languages. For the fourth, we should invest more time and energy in lifelong learning, something what is the next stage, the next level after we finish higher education, and we should never stop. This is indeed like another cycle of education, which is also important and should also be given the enough of importance and political will. And I believe that we are able to make sure that in the next decade, 1/3 of the European citizens will be able to pursue the lifelong learning activities. For the fifth, the open education. Education which is funded publicly especially should be open to all students and teachers to use them to make sure that the access to learning all over the continent will be more equal. And finally, for the sixth, sustainability and the fundamental values. As much as the humanity has devastated the planet in the recent years, the same inequalities in society do to devastating the integrity of our societies. I really believe that the academia should be the place which addresses both issues and should be the forefront of the fight against the destroying the planet and devastating the societies. So to conclude, in the same manner as I'm lucky to be here, to have more opportunities in my education that any person in my family has ever had before, I hope that the future generations, the ones who will be celebrating the 30th, 40th, 50th anniversary of the Bologna process, the ones who are not even yet born but will be students very soon, that they will be able to have better opportunities in learning than any of us here has. Everyone in this room plays a crucial role in making this happen. We can all secure the future of the education of the next generations, and we should take this responsibility on our shoulders. Let us use this 20th anniversary of the Bologna process as the moment to reflect on the past and look ahead, to think strategically, to think about the next generations. May the Bologna process continue to prosper for the next decades to come, and may we dream about the better education, because we just owe it to the next generations. Thank you very much.